Welcome to the Business Bravery podcast, inspiring stories from coaches and course creators to help you do the next brave thing in your business. Coming up on the Business Bravery podcast.
Whatever I focus on expands. So where do I want to place my focus? So that's why the home fun this week for everybody in the group is to notice the serendipity, notice the synchronicities, and then we'll get back together this Wednesday and everybody will have had an experience of that. And then the more you notice that, the more you recognize, oh, wow, the universe does love me and does want me to do really well.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to take my word for things. I love the idea of experimentation, of experimenting. And that's what I've been doing. I've been experimenting with my life and my internal world. And this is what I've noticed. And I've had some, as I said, some great mentors that keep pushing me in that direction. And yeah, it's just been, the more you see it, the more you see it.
I'm your host, Tiffany Gilliland, an Australian business and mindset coach with 10 years experience in online marketing and the creator of the Business Bravery framework. I help coaches like you to be brave so you can stop dreaming and start doing that next big brave step and finally make more impact and get more clients. From speaking on camera to selling to launching, my approach to bravery helps you take bigger leaps without the mindset spirals. It's the secret ingredient to bigger results. In this episode, I had the pleasure of chatting with Anne Bridges, an amazing coach who is based in Australia and moved here from the UK some years ago. I love Anne's approach to coaching and mindset, and I particularly love diving into her experiences with stand-up comedy too. Talk about bravery. I feel like standing on a real life stage and doing comedy is the ultimate act of working outside your comfort zone and braving potential judgment and rejection. We also discussed her approaches to mindset, and she had some great nuggets of wisdom that still drive me today. This is an amazing episode, and I can't wait to share with you Anne's stories of business bravery, past, present, and future. Now, who's ready for some business bravery inspiration? Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. I am here with the amazing Anne Bridges, and we are going to talk to her about amazing bravery stories that she has, past, present, and future. I will thank you first, Anne. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. And yeah, just introduce yourself and let people know what you do, how you help people, and all of your amazing stuff to get started.
Well, thank you, Tiffany, for having me. I really appreciate it. My name's, Anne Bridges. I've spent 30 years in nursing. That's where I've kind of come from. And then over the last 6 or 7 years, I've diverted into coaching. I've always been fascinated with, how the mind works and how we create our experiences in life. And so I really got into coaching about eight years or so now. And it's always fascinated me. So what I like to focus on with people, my area that I really love is working with people with anxiety and limiting beliefs. Those are the things that really fascinate me with the mindset, because if you unpick that aspect, it creates a lot of energy for people to move forward in the direction of their dreams, of what they really want to create, rather than innocently getting caught up in their internal world. Because I think it was Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now saying, if you sort out the inside world, then the external world resolves itself. So that's my area of focus, that internal world, those limiting beliefs, and especially people with anxiety. I love working with people with anxiety because they've got a beautiful imagination and they're just innocently using it in the wrong direction. So they're my favorite people to play with. And and it's great watching them shift that experience and what they create as a result of letting go of that worrying thinking.
Oh, wow. Okay, that feels so powerful to me, especially because I have a long history with anxiety. And yeah, I know what you mean about having this wonderful imagination, which definitely helped me in my creative endeavors, in photography and that kind of stuff, but also perhaps maybe didn't always help me in that internal world of just being able to worry about things that would never happen. worry about things and just having this anxiety that just always came from this place of, oh, what did you say that for, and why did you do that, and oh, that wasn't good enough, and just, yeah, just definitely something that held me back for most of my life, and probably the thing that really sort of started me on this journey around bravery and embracing bravery, because for me it's sort of that different world to what I thought my life was going to be with anxiety, was just getting through the day and trying to look normal to everyone else, and they didn't know what was going on inside. I thought that was going to be my life, and then I started doing these brave things, and yeah, it's just changed everything. So I love what you're doing, and I feel the power of that on a very
Yeah.
personal level for me, is what I'm trying to say in a
Oh, beautiful.
long-winded way.
No, that's great, Tiffany. I'm glad that you've discovered that on the other side of that anxiety, by pushing yourself to do the brave things,
Mm,
actually you get to find out that all the stuff that you had imagined in your head didn't come true. And
mm,
in fact, and that's the whole thing. I mean, lots of people now know about their comfort zones. And
mm,
that's really, when you're stepping through that comfort zone
mm.
into something bigger, you expand. And then things that were, scary are now like, oh, I can do that. So that's
Yeah.
great that you got to see that,
Mm,
Tiffany. Most people
mm,
just can end up stuck there. So
mm.
that's great that you spotted by
Yeah.
doing the brave things what
Yeah.
actually happens for you. That you
Yeah.
get to then test the theory of what the internal world is telling you, and then you ignore it,
Mm,
do
mm.
whatever it is that you need to do. Because I
Yeah.
think bravery isn't that you necessarily don't feel scared.
Mm.
Um, it's that that lovely book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Yeah.
It's not allowing that fear to hold you back, and not buying
Mm,
into the story that that the internal world may
mm.
be telling you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Although I did find for me that book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, like at least at the time that I was reading it in the midst of some pretty big anxiety, didn't quite click for me, but it was just me finding my own way through being able to feel the fear and work with it in a way that suited me. But it wasn't just I could suddenly go out and start talking in front of big groups of people or getting on camera or things like that. That was started off with the very small shifts. So yeah.
And I think that's a great, Tiffany, to
Mm,
start small. You don't have to go
mm,
from 1 to 100 miles an hour.
mm.
It's those little baby steps moving you forward in the direction, and
Yeah.
that consistency that creates the magic. Because here you are now with your, Business Bravery podcast and all the amazing things that you're doing,
Yeah.
all from those
Yeah.
little individual steps.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, speaking of bravery, what brave things are you doing in your business at the moment? Like
Well, for me, the brave thing I'm doing at the moment, I'm doing a group coaching over an 8-week period with what I call my Infinite Possibility Posse. And I love that. It's a group of wonderful women. There's 10 of us at the moment that are, going through an 8-week program that I've put together, really looking at the area of what it is that you want, and then taking everybody on that journey. And there is the power as well. I think the Maharishi effect, when a group of people are, because it's not just focusing on our particular dreams. The whole reason I really wanted to get this group together of Infinite Possibility was looking at, yes, I'm going to move myself forward, but by raising my vibration and feeling good, the other impact that that has in my world. And all boats lift with the rising tide. So if I'm in a great place, just all that wonderful ripple effect. So these beautiful women that are on this Infinite Possibility Posse, um, and when I first started doing these, I did it, I started in COVID, because I remember thinking, oh, what can I do? Well, how can I help? Because everybody's stuck indoors doing nothing. So I thought, Zoom is this thing. So I'm going to get a group of lovely ladies together, set up an Infinite Possibility Posse, and practice Zoom and stuff up on, how to get people into breakout rooms and all of that sort of stuff. So um, I had to, be willing to make a fool of myself. And I don't know whether our listeners I've got teenage children, so they're often rolling their eyes at my technical skills. And, I'm willing to give it a go and learn and press buttons and do all of that sort of stuff. So I think for me, that was the bravery aspect. I love, this information and sharing it with people and seeing the transformation that they get. For me, the being brave part was Zoom, getting things into, that's the stuff that I'm pushing with my bravery. I
Mm.
know that I can, when I'm in front of someone, happy days.
Yeah.
For me, it's been the technology stuff. So the other thing that I'm doing as well is I'm creating a little mini course. So it's getting me in front of the video and editing and all of that sort of stuff. So that's my bravery thing, is the technology.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
rest of it. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment, which I'm really enjoying. And I am learning, as I go, how to improve.
Mm.
Nothing's ever perfect when you first start out. If it is, then please, let me know how you manage that. I'd be very curious.
No.
And it's luckily I've been doing that. Well, when did COVID start? 2020. So that's,
Mm.
yeah. So I've been practicing the Zoom stuff. So hopefully, and I still
Mm.
have fun with it.
Yeah, yeah. And I just want to tell you, like, even from somebody who like grew up with computers and is fine with them, like I too have to do my first session with breakout rooms later this week, and I'm still a bit nervous, and it's still probably going to be like, oh, I pressed the wrong button. Sorry, guys, like just because somebody like has more tech knowledge or more use of technology or something doesn't mean we don't all get nervous about doing the technology. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
say you're not alone on that one. So yeah.
Definitely. Well, and I'm so glad I've got some great mentors in my life that I've watched them doing stuff on Zoom to lots of people, and they still
Yeah.
like, oops, sorry about that,
Yeah.
and it's just being able to go, not having to worry about everything being perfect, because it's not
Yeah.
going to be.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think like for me, that's been the times when I've connected with people better is when the technology failed. And everybody has a bit of a chuckle and a bit of a laugh. And
Yeah.
that's when they see you as a human just like them.
Yes.
And yeah, that's definitely when I've had connections both like out in the real world and then also like over Zoom and things like that. Like I had one time where the technology failed and I was supposed to be sharing something to Facebook, but instead it was like, okay, just come and find me on Zoom. And then I actually had built better connections because we could talk back and forth and that kind of thing. And it led to more sales. So
Yeah.
sometimes the technology fails in our favor.
Yeah,
So
well, that's the thing
yeah,
to remember. We live
yeah.
in, we live in I personally live in a
Mm.
magical universe that wants me to
Mm.
do well. So even the stuff ups usually,
Mm.
create a bit of, I know some, I think one of my mentors created a bit of a blooper reel.
Mm.
So he would actually put that out just to, you could have a laugh, because
Yeah.
often it looks really smooth and seamless. And actually, there
Mm.
is a lot of fun in the
Yeah.
making of. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I just love what you said about living in a world that, sorry, what was it? A magical world.
Yeah,
How did,
whether
yeah.
living
Sorry.
in a magical world where the universe wants me to do well.
Yes, yes. Yeah, for me, I always think about it as like everything is happening in my favor,
Yeah.
which yeah, definitely take me a long time to develop that as a mindset, especially from my humble beginnings with anxiety, where like that anxiety thoughts came from the universe just wants to trip me up or wants to challenge me or wants to make me work harder for a variety of reasons. I think that's where I came from. How do you develop that sense or that thinking? Are there any tips or yeah?
Well, it's just more of an
Mm.
understanding of, I often ask the clients I work with, what kind of a universe do you live in? Is the universe out to get you? Do you think there's a problem with that?
Mm.
Or do you live, in, as you were kind of alluding to, Tiffany, I always think everything is working out for my highest good.
Mm.
So I can relax into that and I can enjoy the so-called mistakes along the way, knowing that it's all working out perfectly. So I often ask the people I work with, the coach, when I'm coaching, what kind of a world do you live in? Because it gives me an insight, because everybody's living in their own individual reality. I
Mm.
used to think we were all living in the same universe. And yes, there are some common threads. And what I get to see is everybody's got their own internal experience of the universe. So I often ask that question, what type of universe do you live in? And then getting people to the point where they do have an experience, because what the thinker thinks, the prover proves. So if I think it's going to be terrible, more often than not, I'm going to prove that to myself.
Yeah.
So it really is in my benefit to think the thoughts that I want to prove.
Mm.
Um, and I'm not perfect. I have moments of fear and doubt. I think that's part of the human experience. It's what I've noticed is I don't stay there as long, and I don't go into it as deeply as I once used to, because one thought would lead to the next. And then I recognize, oh, hold on, I'm doing this to myself. I'm literally scaring myself. So I've had some experiences in my life where the magic has been revealed to me, the beauty, the serendipities, the synchronicities. And the more I focus on that, in fact, that's our home fun rather, for the Infinite Possibility Posse this week, is we had a conversation about the magical things. What are the amazing experiences that you've had in your lifetime? Because I'm sure, Tiffany, you'd have had many as well,
Mm.
where the universe has blown your mind with, wow, I would not expected that happened, and it really lifted you, moved you in the right direction. It's
Mm.
kind of like snakes and ladders, when you suddenly hit the ladder and you've like, whoa, taken a huge leap forward.
Mm.
So that's what I'm getting people to focus on,
Mm.
to notice the serendipities, to notice those synchronicities. I mean, even this situation now of, having the pleasure of being on your podcast.
Mm.
I wasn't expecting that when I turned up for the how we met on that
Mm.
session that Anika did,
Mm.
Annika.
Mm. Yeah.
So yeah,
Mm.
it's just really noticing the magic, and whatever I focus on expands. So where do I want to place my focus? So that's why the home fun this week for everybody in the group is to notice the serendipity, notice the synchronicities, and then we'll get back together this Wednesday, and everybody will have had an experience of that. And then the more you notice that, the more you recognize, oh wow, the universe does love me and does want me to do really well.
Mm. Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
want people to take my word for things. I love the idea of experimentation,
Mm.
of
Yeah.
experimenting. And that's what I've been doing. I've been experimenting with my life and my internal world. And this is what I've noticed. And I've had some, as I said, some great mentors that keep pushing me in that direction. And yeah, it's just
Mm.
been, the more you see it, the more you see it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely been more of my experience, especially in the last few months, or oh gosh, 6 or more months now since I started the podcast. That's just where, like, yeah, my energy changed, everything sort of shifted. I'm doing things I enjoy, and more of those synchronicities, like even finding guests for the podcast, like people just show up and they just go, oh, are you looking for guests? And yeah, it's just, you know, oh man, it has just been amazing. I find it kind of interesting. Years ago, decades ago, in my early 20s, I used to find that feeling of the synchronicities when I was traveling or living overseas. And then when I would come back home to Australia, and then I was back into Australia world and working and things like that. And that's where it was all about the I don't know, it wasn't even the grind or the hustle, it was just the working hard. I had to work hard and live in that anxiety bubble, and then I would get to go travel and find the synchronicities, and that other place where the world worked in my favor. Now
Yeah.
I've managed to bring that into my world in Australia, into my business, and it's just, yeah, it's an amazing place to be. So it sounds
Awesome.
crazy, but it is when
Yes.
you embrace it, right? Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So what did you think shifted for you then, Tiffany, that made you stop?
Mm.
Because when you were in that,
Mm.
I came to this,
Mm.
sorry, my watch is making lovely noises about our session. Um, when I first came to this country, Australia, for me, it felt like going on holiday, and I could reinvent myself and be, and I've maintained that idea that I'm always on holiday,
Mm.
because there is a different mindset. Sometimes you can be more spontaneous. You're not, not so focused in that mundane
Mm.
experience. But so it sounded to me like something shifted for you.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let me think about that because it kind of caught me by surprise. But I was working with a mindset coach who definitely helped me with a lot of the stuff that I was making my work harder and unpicking the stuff around self-doubt and really sort of realizing how much that came into me not feeling enough and how
Yeah,
I always felt I had to work harder. And then,
yeah,
yeah, it was just like working with a professional like yourself, I think, where it just, you need someone on the outside to help you see those patterns and things like that. And yeah, I think it was just like in a session where I sort of said, yeah, like being in my business feels like I'm on holiday. And she was like, oh, that's amazing. You should write
yeah.
some content about that. And then that just, now I start looking for those moments and then it just expanded and things like that. I know it seems like a very simple explanation to what took me months to unlearn and unpack because decades of that kind of thinking, from coping mechanisms in childhood and stuff like that. So,
Well, I think we
yeah.
have that kind of when you fire together, that internal, what actually
Mm,
happens on, the
mm,
physical aspect when you have a thought and it fires and then it wires, and then you end up with kind of like a groove pattern of a habitual way of thinking. I had
mm,
a great mentor once that said the instructions for getting outside of the box
mm.
are on the outside of the box.
Oh my gosh. I,
So this is
oh,
why sometimes it's good to have somebody to support you with that mindset who's on the outside of the box that can see some of the instructions that or the limiting beliefs, because I don't know, sometimes it's hard to see ourselves, to
mm,
see our own particular story that we've just got so used to. It kind of feels like our identity.
mm,
And I'm always pointing people upstream back
yeah.
to the truth of who they really are,
Mm,
remembering that they are a spiritual being having a physical human experience.
mm,
And so the further upstream you go, it's then you have insights and a realization around something, and it just unpicks everything up downstream
yeah.
just by, again, the instructions for the getting out of the box or on the outside of the box. When you suddenly realize something, you have an insight around it, it just
Yeah.
shifts and it becomes easy and effortless. That's for me, I'm
Mm,
always focusing on, easy, effortless, moving through life with ease and grace. I don't want to make things hard. My sister's been in business for 30 plus years, and her little mantra is, I want to work smarter, not harder.
mm,
And so that's to me where the juice is anyway, because actually the more you can get the balance right and
mm,
have plenty of fun in
mm,
your world, um, and being playful and all of those sorts of stuff, um, that's going to help you with your business and
mm,
is going to bring you more success. Sometimes everyone can get quite serious about this thing called life, um, and I'm not saying it doesn't have its moments.
mm.
And
Yeah.
I've noticed the more serious I've gotten about life, the harder things have become, which is why, um,
Mm,
well, just reminding myself, that to have fun, to enjoy the process. I mean, everybody wants to get to the destination, whatever that is,
mm,
and it's important to have fun on the journey.
mm. Oh yeah, I absolutely. I spent years, decades of trying to get to the destination and just putting my head down and trying to work as hard as I could to get to there as quickly as I could. And what I didn't realize, and took me years to work out, that as soon as I hit that destination, there was another destination to work
That's
towards.
it. Yeah.
And yeah, and I'd been in business for a couple of years at that point. And yeah, it was like I was miserable in it because it was like, hang on, if business is a long game, then I need to find a way to enjoy the process and
Yeah.
enjoy the day to day because then otherwise it just becomes this like miserable, for me, miserable way of working and living life of just, yeah.
Well, I think a lot of
Mm.
people fall into the "I'll be happy when" trap.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll be happy when I'm a six-figure business. I'll be happy when
Yeah.
I've got X amount of clients. I'll be happy when whatever it is, whatever, for
Mm.
women, it's a certain size of the body often. There'll be that "I'll be happy when,"
Yeah.
and then it's just a trap. It
Mm.
really is.
Yeah.
There's the more I can spend in the present moment being happy and being joyful, the
Yeah.
more magical things, serendipity, synchronicity, because thought is creates an energy, but then the heart magnetizes it, that heightened emotion, that feeling of love and
Mm.
connection, and knowing that I live in a magical universe and that the universe wants me to do well. So I do my bit, whatever that looks like to me, the next step that I need to take. I don't have to overthink it too much, but play with it. Be
Mm.
prepared to stuff up and
Yeah.
know that actually that's part of it. I I taught birthing classes, and I work as a senior emotional coach for an international fertility company. So I'm working a lot with end up with babies, and when they learn to walk, they're going to spend a lot of time falling over. That's part of learning to walk.
Mm.
So maybe this thing called failure, and it's such a loaded word that, but actually, it's just another opportunity
Mm.
to you know realize, okay, that's just another way that I've created of it not working, and you always learn from those experiences. um, it took me 7 years to finally publish my birthing book, or about five, yeah, a long time. So I
Yeah.
had a lot of opportunity to stuff up, yeah, along the journey, on the process, getting frustrated with myself, all of those sorts of things,
Mm.
and actually just recognizing perhaps I don't know how long this process was supposed to take. Um, and it all unfolded perfectly ultimately anyway. And having that persistence, even when things didn't go well, because when I did the first draft and I had an editor doing it, and I sent it off to my sister and a few other friends, and the feedback I got around, certain aspects were definitely needed to be addressed. And then I just lost enthusiasm and it's like, oh my God, this is too hard. So again, that internal world took over. And
Mm.
then through some serendipity and some other things, I ended up being on a collaborative book.
Mm.
And that got me in touch with an amazing editor. And I got to see what they meant by the editing process. And yeah, it just shifted everything. And I finally, I'd done a lot of the hard work and all the writing and stuff, and then had just kind of fallen at the getting the details handled.
Mm.
And so somebody there to hold my hand through all the details, an amazing editor from Canada. And yeah, finally got it out. So it's allowing myself to, just like the baby, to fall over. That's part of the
Mm.
process in creating something, and not getting too hung up about how long something takes.
Mm. Oh man, yeah, definitely. Not getting too hung up on how long something takes. Like that's me and my business. It's like the
Yeah.
most stubborn venture. Years I've been working at this and varying iterations and things like that. And
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And
that's it. But
just
that's
and
what,
all the failures, all of them.
yeah.
Like I've done them all.
And that makes you a better coach, Tiffany, at the end of the day. That's made me a better coach with how I view, yeah,
Mm.
what it is that you need to, and how innocent we can get lost in our heads and end up creating yeah, something that we're yeah, but it's all part of the magic. It's all part of the process to recognize, okay, to pick yourself up. I mean, I love I'm the kind of coaching that I do is based on the work of a guy called Sydney Banks. And he was a theosopher from Glasgow who had an enlightening experience. But one of his quotes, which I really love, is "Life is a contact sport."
Oh.
So I'm gonna get knocked over. It's, as much as the universe loves me, it's actually in the picking myself up and dusting myself off and going, oh wow, that didn't work. That actually I learn more about myself. But I I trust the process, that this is just everything that I need, just like the child falling over. You don't scold the child for falling over. You recognize that that's part of the getting to learn how to balance.
Yeah.
So, life is a contact sport. Sometimes you're going to fall over. It's just in the getting up and the
Mm,
using that information, that feedback from the
mm,
fall that you previously had, what you
yeah.
can take on board to move forward next time.
Mm. Oh, wow. Yeah. Definitely agree with that. And just thinking about all of just how like our how interesting it would be if like our education system was like something that's set up to appreciate the falling over and the learning and the celebrating that side of things, how different we might all be and how different our society could be, as opposed to you've got to get the right answer. Because it's sort of like, to me, the education system just sort of just has this whole different approach and maybe undoes some of that learning and maybe natural intuitive ways that we all have with this stuff. Yeah.
Mm. I mean, intuition is a really interesting thing to be aware of and understand, and the more you listen to that intuition, I've had some great experiences where I've listened to my inner tutor,
Mm,
um, that intuition, that guidance, and followed it through. And well, one particular incident that springs to mind was I was on the board for the Australian Society of Clinical Hypnotherapists, and we were doing our annual general meeting, and this is before COVID, so everybody was in a large conference room, and we had this wonderful guest speaker, and he's a hypnotherapist and psychiatrist, and just amazing what he could do. And he was doing a workshop following on from the annual general meeting for the next 3 days. But I wasn't going to go because I'd got school kids, and it was just during the school holidays, so I couldn't really. That was my reasoning. Anyway, after watching him, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing what he's done. So I was asking him at the lunch break, what do you do in the workshop? What's different? And he said, oh, I don't do private practice much anymore. So I get a hat, and I pull a person's name out of a hat, and they get to do a hypnosis session with me live on stage. And then I had this thought out of nowhere. My intuition said, that's going to be me. And I'm like, internally, I'm like, well, I'm not even going to the workshop. How's it? So fortunately, I told one of my friends, Janine, who's also on the board, and she said, oh, you've got to make it happen. So I got solution focused. I found somebody to look after the kids. I persuaded my husband that the investment was worthwhile. Anyway, what blew me away was on that second day when they put the name in the hat, my name got pulled out.
mm,
So by listening to that inner tutor, that intuition being, and I'm sure we've all had experiences where we've gone, oh, I knew that was going to happen and I didn't listen to myself, and the more you can listen to your intuition, trust your intuition, and actually act upon it, then you'll
mm,
get more intuitive hits.
mm.
Um, as you go. Again, the universe loves me. It wants me to do well. Am I open to that inner guidance and following it?
Mm. Yeah. Oh, wow. Uh, Gosh, I definitely can think of similar situations where it's just I've had this sort of knowing about like what's going to happen, and oh yeah, tapping into that. I could definitely learn to tap into that more though. So yeah,
Mm.
definitely.
Well, that's
Mm,
it. It's here to guide you. It really
mm,
is. And that's where the universe, in some ways, communicates. And we're not taught about that. You're not really taught about intuition and guidance. And, I think it was Einstein used to get his best work after having a nap. And so he would allow that time to relax and,
mm,
and then, that deeper wisdom, which we all can connect to and we all are connected to,
mm,
we can tap into that. And then it just moves us forwards in ways and leaps and bounds. Yeah. I mean,
mm.
having that session with this amazing guy live on stage was just awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. But what blew me away the most was that I knew,
Mm,
and I was
yeah.
willing to take action, even though my rational mind was going, "This is ridiculous." Um, I was willing to ignore the rational.
Mm,
I
yeah.
wasn't going to put myself in danger.
Yeah.
It's going into a workshop's never really going to do any harm. And yet, it is listening to that inner nudge, that guidance system.
Mm, yeah. Oh man, awesome. So I'd love to travel back to maybe before you were a coach or like as you were
Mhm.
deciding to become a coach. What kind of brave steps did you have to take to do that sort of transition? And yeah.
I actually borrowed some money off of my friend and organized a payback system to her each month because I wanted to shell out, what was a lot of money for me. I think it was because it was in pounds. So then when you worked with Australian money, it became double. So yeah, that was the first brave step. I knew I wanted to work with this particular mentor, and you know, you'll get to find out that some of the best mentors do actually charge a reasonable amount, and there's nothing wrong with that. And again, it's those limiting beliefs of, and it was one of the best investments I made. And having a friend that was willing to stump up the money for me. She had some savings, so she stumped up the money. Obviously, she trusts me, and then I'd put a standing order, so she would get the money back each
Yeah.
week. So I was in my job, so it was that kind of transitional. And then when I got that had that experience, I did more. But by which time,
Mhm.
um, so when I did the coaching, the first coaching year-long program that I did with a gentleman called Jamie Smart, who's an amazing mentor. I didn't, as part to qualify, you had to actually have paying clients. And as I said, I've come from a nursing background, so I've not had, like, who's going to, hire me? How's all that going to happen? And I remember thinking, I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to move forward. This feels the right thing to do. I'll work it out as we go. Anyway, as soon as I was probably about 3 or 4 months into the year-long program, and I got a phone call from an amazing lady, Gabriella Rosa, and she said, "We are in need of an emotional coach. Somebody's going on a sabbatical. Would you cover for them?" Um, and my internal world was like, "Oh my God, I've got no idea." And then, but what came out of my mouth was, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." And again, work it out, get solution first, work it out on the way. I had like technology I had to learn and all of this sort of stuff. And yeah, that's how I got my, she ended up creating, lots of people. I had a diary full of people to see. So I've been coaching those groups of people for at least 5 or 6 years now. So that was me just taking that brave step, not really knowing how. There's a nice visual that my mentor once painted, that if you imagine that you're driving at night and it's foggy and you've got the headlights on and you can only see a short way ahead of you, you can still get all the way home like that. So
Yeah.
I could only see a short way ahead of me, and I did what I needed to do, and then the next bit got revealed. So I was able to, you know, it's not about necessarily, I mean, I know all of us, myself included, would love to know how it's all going to work out beautifully every single step of the way. And
Yeah.
that's not really how it works. Life unfolds. So
Mm.
I take a step and then life unfolds, and then I take a step and then life unfolds. So it's, rather than rushing it all and getting to the destination, it's just enjoying that I can only see a little way in front of me, and that's fine. I can still get all the way home like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, actually, yeah, that's definitely been a lot of the work that I've done has been being okay with not knowing exactly how it's going to be. And I guess that's definitely helped that I have worked through a lot of that anxiety and those patterns because the anxious me definitely wanted to control and wanted to know all of those things. Whereas now it's like having that safety again, like what you said before, the universe wants me to succeed. It's working in my best interests. Um, you use the word magical. I don't know why your words don't click in my head the same way, but just yeah, like I love that idea of magical and that stuff too. It's just yeah, can just definitely see how all of that works together and yeah.
Yep.
And then when you're in that kind of mindset and you invest big in yourself, how that can really help to move forward. Just for my experience, like there've been a couple of times where I invested big, but my mindset wasn't there. My mindset was like, oh no, like I can't afford this. And then I
Yeah.
wasn't doing the work and didn't get the results from that investment because it was just seemed to be too big of a leap for me at that time. So
Mm.
yeah.
Well, again, that's back to the what the thinker thinks, the prover proves.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I now, whenever I'm doing another course with Jamie Smart, another year-long program.
Mm.
It's the advanced, but I'm doing it again. It's like reading a good book. You see so much on the second reading, and you can keep reading. If it's a really good book, you'll get more of the layers. So, and now I know every time I do a course with Jamie, yes, it may be a big shell out at the beginning, and I've always had more back from it. So
Mm.
whatever I've put in has come back to me multiplied. So that's,
Mm.
I think it was Dr. Joe Vitale as well I was listening to, and he's got a story running, which is brilliant, of the more money I spend, the more money comes to me.
Mm.
So again, it's that the stories, the limiting beliefs that we may have around money and how they impact on our experience. And yeah, if we live in a belief generated universe, what beliefs have I got that are going to support me and move me forward? And what beliefs do I innocently hold that are innocently holding me back?
Mm. Yeah. What beliefs do I innocently hold that are holding me back? Oof. Yeah, it's always like that when you find one of your own limiting beliefs too, like something that's just been on autopilot and it's like, yeah, that comes back to what you said before about all of a sudden all these things in the past make sense.
Yeah,
It's just, oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it is the innocence. I don't want anyone to feel guilty or bad, or, everyone's doing the best they can with the information that they've got.
Mm.
You know, and I've certainly had that experience, in my life where, God, if I'd known better, I would have done it differently. And I didn't at that point, and that's fine. I did the best that I could. And again, like falling over, it moved me in the direction that I needed to go.
Mm.
It's made me a better coach. Um,
Mm.
some of the mistakes that I've made. I've written a birthing book. My book is Gentle Birthing, to help support women through the birthing process, because I got to see when I had my kids that, and having spent 20 odd years at that point in the nursing realm and worked in theatres with birthing, that a lot of the stories, the limiting beliefs around there were selling people short. So
Mm. Yeah.
um, by looking at that and looking at some of the stories we have around birth in particular are
Mm.
very limiting and very, and we keep telling each generation, this is going to be terrible, this is going to be awful, and then get surprised when it is. But it really doesn't need to be that way. That's what I got to see. And actually
Mm.
letting people into that secret of, you can create a different experience.
Mm. Yeah.
Again, it's just a limiting belief that's been going on for a long time, that
Mm.
um, the medical model, and it's the innocence behind it. That's what I really want people to understand, that
Mm.
people mean well.
Mm.
They're not doing it maliciously or anything like that. It's just, until you see something different, you
Mm.
will kind of end up innocently repeating the same mistakes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I mean, there's a couple of different elements too. It's like if somebody tells you it's going to be painful and it's going to be hard, then that's the experience you're going to create for yourself. Whereas, like,
Well,
I've heard,
yeah,
yeah,
you're going to
sorry.
end up in fear and anxiety. And one of the things that I studied when I did my nurse training was pain, because I'm such a wimp myself, that I thought, wow, pain management was something that I was really interested in.
Mm.
And it's well known that fear and anxiety increase your perception of pain.
Mm. Yeah.
So if somebody's going into the whole birthing process and they're already in fear and they're already anxious, they're
Mm.
going to experience it as more painful than it needs to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some obvious things that people,
Mm.
and again, innocently, I think the medical model sometimes can scare people.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
it's not intentional. It's just, the
Mm.
way that the medical model is set up. It's often focusing on what can go wrong.
Mm.
rather than
Yeah.
actually seeing it as a normal, natural process that the body knows what to do. And
Mm.
um, again, so then that fear and anxiety, and then, even with the way it's portrayed on television,
Yeah.
or in the movies, um,
Yeah.
it's never portrayed as something gentle and something
Yeah. Oh man.
spiritual or blissful or.
Not just that, it's the stories you sometimes hear
Hmm,
from other mothers. Like I had an experience where when I was 17, my sister is a big deal, great deal older than me. Not that much older, but like nearly a decade older than me.
hmm.
And her and her friends were sitting around and they were all talking birthing stories because they'd all had children. And I was at 17 getting greener and greener as the stories of I nearly died on the table and this and that and the stitches and this and just was like,
Yeah.
it's like, huh.
Well, that's
But
it. And
before that, nothing had ever been said. Like people didn't talk about it or anything when I
no.
was younger. Like it was the big secret. Let them work it out when they're in the birthing suite.
Well, that's it. And that's what I really wanted to shift people's understanding. I was really fortunate when I was heavily pregnant with my daughter and was going in for a checkup with the midwives. And this lady came out with her beautiful newborn baby. And she looked at me and she went, "Oh, God, you're going to love birth. It's amazing." So there are, but often we don't hear those stories. So whenever I was teaching birthing classes, I would say, look, you're going to have a great experience. Please tell as many people as possible, that your birthing experience. We don't have to just listen to the horror stories all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to shift complete different tones. Maybe not. Maybe there's some overlap here. But there's a story in your past that I want to talk about just because selfishly I want to hear more about this story. And that is about your stand-up comedy career.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as a career.
I know
Although sometimes I
I'm
think
being cheeky and dramatic, sorry.
that's fine. Well, I did there's a game called the Wish Game, which I'd got. It's a good fun game, and you create a wish that you want. What is it you'd like to get? And one of the girls on the playing the game wanted to get better at presentation because she did a lot of presentation through work. So she said, "I want to get better at presentation." That was her wish. Anyway, as we're playing the game, you kind of land on these spots and these cards come out. And her card was, um, get one of the other players to support you in creating your wish come true. So she turned around to me and said, would you do a stand-up comedy course with me? And I was like, oh, again, the brain's going, oh my God. Anyway, what came out of my mind was, yeah, sure, I'll help you with that. Well, what, what's the worst that can happen?
Mm.
So we ended up enrolling on a really good, actually, 6 weeks course in Sydney with a gentleman. Oh, his name escapes me. Anyway, yeah, it was a 6 weeks course. So we learned about juxtapositions, the rule of three, really how to create a comedy routine. Because like anything, there is, certain guidelines and rules that you can follow.
Yeah.
And actually, now I'm aware of that. I can see much more often. I love one of my favorite programs is Have You Been Paying Attention? And you can see some of the things that they're doing, like a callback, where they'll keep referring back to something. That's called a
Mhm.
callback.
Yeah.
It's simple things like that. And so then we got to, as part of the 6 week course, you create your own 2 minute, 3 minute presentation. Well, comedy routine, really. It's not really a presentation. And then you get to perform it in front of a group of people in a pub. And so that's what I did. And fortunately, because I have been doing all this coaching stuff and working with Jamie Smart, and I didn't feel overly nervous. Yes, I could feel a little bit of, okay, but I knew I'm so glad that I've spent so many years in nursing, because ultimately my bar, especially when I was, working in hospitals and stuff, was things like nobody died today. It was a good day.
Mm.
So I have a very different like level of,
Mm.
it's a stand-up comedy. Nobody's going to, well, I'm assuming nobody's going to die during that.
Mm.
Perhaps me on stage, but I can handle that. So
Yeah.
I didn't really, I've got a different set. I mean, nursing's been a really good grounding, a good, background to have, because you have to develop a sense of humor.
Mm,
Um, that's I think, a prerequisite. Most nurses have got a wicked sense of humor, um, and like a laugh. Otherwise, yeah,
mm,
you have
yeah.
to see the funny side of things, because
Oh,
otherwise it
yeah.
just would, tear you apart, I think.
Mm,
So yeah, I got to invite a group of friends along to the pub, stand up, perform
mm,
the stand up comedy. And yeah, nobody died, so that was good. And I did get some laughs, so I was really
mm,
enjoyed that. It was a good experience.
mm,
Um, wondered about repeating it, because actually, what I get to see with comedians, what they're actually doing
mm.
is they are practicing their material on you. Because there
Yes.
were certain points where I was surprised that a physical gesture that I did got a lot of laughs.
Mm, yeah.
When I was talking about manual evacuation, the actual physical movement that went with it. So I was like, oh wow! So you get feedback from the
Mm,
universe, from the
yeah.
people in the audience, and you like, mental note to self. Yes, use that. Drop this. Um, I
Yeah.
did a really one joke which got a but it's just testing where your audience are, what they think's funny. How dark can I be? Because I think with nursing,
Mm,
wow, I speak for myself. I can find my humor can be darker than perhaps other people's.
yeah.
So neither good or bad. It doesn't,
Mm, yeah.
if somebody's in that situation where it is really difficult for them, I'm not, I'm going to
Yeah.
be empathetic. I'm not
Mm,
going to make a joke at their expense.
yeah.
And I have learned, just to see the humor in things.
Mm,
So
yeah.
yeah, I
Mm,
don't know. It was a great experience. And I think because actually I'd done a course, a personal development course ages ago, which one of the things that they get you to do is kind of share your deepest, darkest secret.
mm,
So if you can stand up in front of a room and share that,
mm.
comedy is going to be an absolute walk in the park. It really is.
Actually, some of the best comedy routines are built around your deepest, darkest secret
Yes,
because
definitely.
that's all
Yeah.
about like connecting with the audience and making
Yeah.
it relatable and stuff like that. So
Well, that's
yeah.
it. Those universal themes that we all are frightened of, that we all can, have that. Yeah, it's,
Mm,
I think to see life being fun, having humor about stuff really is great. And actually, one of the great things that when I did the 6 weeks course was actually taking a notebook around with you. And when you
mm,
see something that, yeah,
yeah.
just go, oh yeah, and write that down.
Mm,
Um, because you'll often, I would say to myself, oh yeah, I remember that, and then the following day it's like, oh, I know I thought of something really funny and I can't remember it now. So whatever it is that you're doing, if it's always good to have a little notebook if there's something that you're preparing for, whether it's a speech or
mm,
stand-up comedy,
yeah.
to actually have a little
Mm,
notebook.
yeah. Yeah. In fact, I carry one around like from my background in writing short stories
Mm.
and that kind of thing. But
Yeah,
also I use it for business ideas, content ideas. I
yeah,
just never know when something's going to strike. And
yep,
yeah. Mm.
I've got one here. just to note those little things down, so that
Mm,
when you need it, it's there, and there's actually, you don't have to do, because
mm,
inspiration, intuition, all of that sort of stuff, you never know
mm,
when it's going to hit.
yeah.
So it's about
Mm,
being prepared for it.
yeah.
But I would
So,
recommend it. I would recommend having a go.
mm,
um Nobody's ever died from stand-up comedy. Well, not literally. Well, maybe they were there. Well, I'll have to check that one out. I think actually Tommy Cooper did die
oh
on
no.
stage.
Oh no.
But sorry, Tommy.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm,
most people in the
yeah.
grand scheme of things, and I'm sure Tommy Cooper, that would have been the way he wanted to go anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's interesting what you said about, repeating it and learning from that. because I remember like my days when I was teaching in my younger years, it's like I'd be teaching the same set of stuff, and part of my teaching involves a certain level of entertainment with younger kids to
Mm,
keep them interested. So then it's just would be interesting how a completely different room of kids would take one part and love it, ignore a part that the other kids loved, and yeah, I
yeah,
just think it'd be similar with
yeah.
the comedy too. So,
But that's it. It's the repetition of it as well, and learning, yeah, little nuances that, grab people's attention, and, seeing that universal humor around it, and actually, being able to, uh, being able to laugh at myself.
mm,
Yeah, I remember one of the things that I did as a junior student nurse,
mm,
and I had a patient. He'd had brain surgery, and I had a bed bath to perform at the time. So this is my first kind of opportunity with a live person to do a bed bath. And, just like we've been talking recurrently about falling over, and that's how you learn. What I'd forgotten, I'd kept on putting, rather than bringing everything around with me, I kept on walking around the bed to get things backwards and forwards, really. Silly, simple things that you don't,
mm,
only by experience.
yeah.
Anyway, what I hadn't realized was, hadn't noticed the large drip. It's on wheels, and you usually hang the drips to it as a drip stand,
Yeah.
and it's on wheels. Luckily, he wasn't attached to it, but for some reason there was a drip stand in his little cubicle, which was kind of had curtains around it. Anyway, I tripped on said drip stand and sailed elegantly, no, and landed halfway in of the curtains, halfway out of the curtains. And bless him, he just cracked up laughing, and he said, "Thank you so much. That is the funniest thing I have seen since I've been here." So, again, making a fool of myself. He had a great laugh out of it, though. He really enjoyed it. I got to learn something about make sure you have everything next to you when you before you start. And yet, laughter is the best medicine. So from my perspective, I think I did him a favor.
Yeah, yeah, definitely would have improved his day for
Oh,
sure.
totally improved it, because not much happens. Well, it can be a bit boring in hospital sometimes.
Yeah,
So I definitely livened up his, and I've got a story to tell, and I learned about, how not to do it by
yeah,
royally stuffing up, and yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Anyway,
And I mean, like, I love that what you said, I now have a story to tell. And like that can be some of the best part of
yeah,
failure, or when things don't work out as you planned. It's like I now have a funny story to tell for
yeah,
others. So, yeah.
that's right. And to think you're going to be perfect straight off or any of that, it's just learning to, fail upwards as much as possible,
Yeah, yeah.
and just know that yeah, it's a good story at the end of the day.
Mm,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and I know I made his day.
Mm, awesome. So, okay, shifting now again. Like,
Yes.
what kind of brave things do you have planned for the next few months, 3 to 6 months, or however long you plan out if you're a planner? What brave things do you
Well,
have planned?
that's what I'm learning to do more of, the planning.
Oh,
I'm quite a spontaneous big picture person,
mm,
and that's great, and detail's good. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, is doing a whole load of planning stuff, getting my technology handled. That's and really my brave thing for me is creating products. That's what I'm in the process of doing over this year. I've got a great mentor who's helping me with that. So breaking it down into small bite-sized pieces. So I will begin with uh, a 3 or 4 videos, or about limiting beliefs. So
mm.
actually creating products, that's my brave thing for me to do this year. And again, the
Products
technology
like
behind it.
knowledge products, is that what you mean? Kind of
Information,
educational knowledge, information.
yeah,
Yeah,
informational products.
yeah. Mm,
I mean, I've created the birthing book, so therefore I can easily create. As I used to teach the birthing classes for quite some time, so I've got lots of
mm,
stories around that, personal experiences, people that I've worked with. I did doulaing for quite some time. That was probably the first coaching that I got into. was with birthing. So it's still got that medical feel to it. And
Yeah.
I'd certainly learned a lot because I'd come from that medical side of things. But then was getting more into the mindset, the coaching. So yeah, creating products. That's my brave thing that I'm doing this year is actually, I'm very fortunate. As I said, my sister, who's been in business for 30 years, she does this thing of in the morning going, oh, how much money did I earn while I slept? And I was like, wow, that's a great, passive income. So that's my focus and plan at the moment. And it's, actually creating something that's going to be useful for people, because what I sometimes forget is people don't know what I know. And I kind of make this something, why don't you know that? This is obvious to me,
Yeah.
because I've known about a lot of this stuff for a long time. So, and I'm getting to experience the benefits. So yeah, it's all about sharing that information and keeping it simple for people to really, get the juice out of it. So that's my brave thing this year: technology and creating products.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that whole thing you said about they don't know what I know, like that's what I find the majority of my clients and even myself can fall into that as well, just because like people work with us because they want our expertise because they don't know what we know, but then it can be hard to remember what it was like to not know what we know. I've
Yeah.
used the word no a lot in that sentence, so I hope you can follow it. It's
All the
like
different
drop
types of
words.
no's as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's it. And that's what coaching, well, again, it's that, the clues for getting outside of the box or on the outside of the box. So, getting somebody else to see what you don't know as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's having that beginner's mind again, where I've come from, what are the insights and realizations that have really made a difference and shifted me, and how can I share that with as many people as possible so that they don't have to make the mistakes that I've made? Because I think there's that, that series of, learning from your own mistakes, but it's even better if you can learn from other people. So that's why I wrote the birthing book, because I did make some mistakes, even with my medical understanding and knowledge.
Yeah.
So those mistakes that I've made, I can save people a world of pain. So why wouldn't I? And actually, yeah, although it took me a long time to write the book, it's great, having got it all down out into that form, and now I can create, products that help people, so they can, don't have to make the same mistakes.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. I love that. I think there's probably some more of that in my future too. I have a quick question for you. How do
Sure.
you become a planner person? I do need to do more of this.
Well, it's sitting down and
Mm,
actually getting the
mm,
notebook out.
yeah.
And so I work backwards. I have a big plan of
Mm,
what it is, what's my dream? If I could wave a magic wand,
yeah.
how would I know it had worked? What would I be seeing? What would I be experiencing? What would I be, really, again, going
Mm,
upstream in an ideal world? It's a magic wand, so I can have anything. And then coming from that space and then writing the dream and
mm,
then working back from that, oh, this is what I really want.
mm,
This is the destination. This is, you setting up the GPS. That's where I want to go. And then working backwards to okay, well, if that's what I want, what do I need to have, do, or be to achieve said outcome?
mm, yeah.
So for me, that's why the next step, obvious step for me, is to start creating products.
Mm,
I've done the grounding, like I've been coaching for 5 or 6 years now solidly. Um, I've done some scary things, so I'm more confident in front of the camera and, been interviewed and all of that sort of stuff. So I feel like I've done the steps to get me to this point. So that's what it is. It's creating that overall, who do I need to be, do, or have to create that end dream result? And then, okay, what's the next step? I also have a look at as a result of that, some of the limiting beliefs that may come up, because often when you've got this beautiful dream of, oh yeah, that's what I want, then you'll find the thoughts of, oh, I can't do that because it'll be hard work, yada, yada. All those lovely limiting beliefs go, what about me?
Yeah.
And so that's the opportunity in that point to actually go back and go, if, look out for them. They're going to come, enjoy them. That's part of the human experience. You're going to come up against your perceived limitation. So then what I do is I create affirmations or just have a look at the thinking that is preferable, or letting go of some of the stuff that isn't serving me. Again, that innocence, seeing the innocence of the thought that keeps playing out, and recognizing that that doesn't have to be my identity. So therefore I will, plan just a rough 2 or 3 steps of things. So like what I'm doing next is I've got the headlines for each of the products that I want to create, and then it's drilling down so that I can, that to me, because my ultimate goal is I'm a happy, healthy, international spiritual millionaire. So that's my dream goal. What is it I need to do to create that? Well, there's physical health stuff. There's my lovely green smoothie.
Oh, yeah.
I like walking. That's my form of exercise, and I'm doing more of that. So what are the things that's part of the planning process? What is it that I need to do that I'm going to enjoy to help me create that ultimate dream?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I do a lot of that in different ways. I guess like I was sort of wondering like how do you start planning further ahead? Because for me, like even the 1 year plan, like things like that, for me, it's often like I can kind of see a couple, like, I can see my next step. And then I like to sort of see what could happen next rather than having this plan of exactly where I think it's going to go, because then I might not be open to the possibilities. But by the same token, having a bit more breathing space in my business could definitely, I'm trying to balance those two things and work my way through them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, just remember that a lot of time, I mean, when an aeroplane takes off, most of the time it's course correction. So you're kind of setting off in that direction. This is where I'm heading. And, there will be some course corrections along the way. And it's not to take it personally or to be upset by it, just to know, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what makes sense to me. This is what my intuition, guidance, whatever, to take me in the direction of my dreams, of the next step I need to take. Remember that metaphor that I use that, sometimes if you're driving at night in the fog and you've got your lights on, you can only see that much in front of you.
Yeah.
And you can still get all the way home like that. So yes, I've got kind of an overarching view, and I'm aware that things may change. The universe may suddenly present me with this opportunity to speak to you and do a podcast. I had no expectation and this is where I think this is what I get to see. There's a magical universe, because there's things that I cannot envision, plan, like that when I went to that conference, and then suddenly having the thought of, oh, that's going to be me brought up on stage. And that's not part of a plan that I've meticulously put out, that I will get my name pulled out of a hat. And so it's being willing to do what makes sense to you in this time, taking you in the direction of your dreams, and recognizing that there may be a sudden beautiful helping hand from the universe, that suddenly if you think of it like a game of snakes and ladders, suddenly you've hit a ladder and you've gone up. So the more fun you can have with it, and not be so wedded. It's like, what do I need to do next? And then see what happens from there.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. So,
and then I've got the bigger picture of the playing in the background, because that's ultimately where I want to go.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, that definitely, gives me some perspective of just how I'm wanting to shift in those different ways. So thank you. Okay, last question that I have for you,
Mhm.
and that is if there is somebody who is listening who wants to do their next big brave thing, whatever that might be, whether that is their digital product, they're having to overcome technology, or launch the podcast or get on a podcast, like, but they're procrastinating, they're holding back, they can't seem to find the time, those limiting beliefs might be surfacing. What advice would you give to that person to move forward?
I would be gentle with myself
Mm.
because often there's a weight of expectation which tends to create the procrastination. It's that fear um, is what creates the procrastination. And this may sound like bad coaching, but I always take it to the nth degree of what is the worst that could possibly happen? Hence that kind of thing. Well, nobody's going to drop dead if I do stand-up comedy. And if it is, they've probably got a pre-existing, it's got nothing to do with my comedy, hopefully. Um, so maybe it sounds like bad coaching, but I have a look at what is my biggest fear?
Mm.
What is the worst that can, because I know when I wrote the book, the fear was, oh my God, people are going to see that I believe in a magical universe, that, and what are they going to think of me? I've come from a scientific background of, and yet there's now science backing up, the whole magical, that your thoughts create your reality. I mean,
Yeah.
there's the science is now backing that up. What the thinker thinks, the prover proves. So take it to that nth degree of, okay, what is the worst thing that I'm really frightened of, and really look at it. And then you'll get to see that I like Harry Potter and stuff like that. And it's those dementors. They look really scary. I mean, perhaps that's not the best analogy, but it's ultimately when you see through it, that actually, I think what they do, oh, that's right. What they do with the dementor, they practice on for all the Harry Potter fans, I'm going to ruin it. They practice on some particular similar, and it pretends to be your worst fear. And then you make it into something funny.
Yeah.
So it is having a look at that worst fear and then having a laugh at really like, wow, how amazing is my imagination that I can think this worst case scenario and believe it to be real. And instead of what ifing yourself down, like then have a look at, well, what if it did work out? So for me, with creating my products, what if it helps even one person have a
Yeah.
better life? Wow, just I only have to, that's one person. There's 7 million or 7 billion on the planet. So surely
Yeah.
I can help one person. So it's that kind of
Mm.
having a look at that worst case scenario. What is it I'm scaring myself with?
Yeah.
And then what ifing it in a different direction? Because I often find, especially with those people with a beautiful imagination, that they want certainty. And we are living in an uncertain universe. Nobody really knows what's going to happen next. And COVID
Yeah.
was great for showing that. So the people who want certainty, or the people that deal better with uncertainty rather, are the ones that recognize that their thinking is transient. It doesn't have to, you don't have to buy into it. So feeling that fear, whatever it is, having a really good look at it, is it really as scary as you think? And then what ifing yourself in a different direction? What if it does work out? What if I do, make people laugh for the stand-up comedy, and actually having a look at it in the different direction. So have a look at the worst case scenario and then start looking at what would it look like if I went in the other direction? What if it does all work out? What if I do create a wonderful product? What if I am a great stand-up comedian eventually? I don't know that anybody's going to get up and
Yeah.
if you
Nail it
do,
first time. Yeah.
right, good for you. But I remember my first birthing class was awful. Nobody died though, so that was good.
Sorry, is that where you were teaching and running a class, or you
I
were
was I was teaching the first time I taught
Oh yeah.
a birthing class.
Yeah.
So it's allowing myself to go from novice to expert. Everyone's got to start off at novice. That's
Yeah.
fine. Be prepared to fall over. That's part of the learning. So
Yeah.
again, that's why I really think it is to be gentle with yourself. Often we can be our own worst enemy, our own worst critic and judgment and, perfectionism and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So look at your worst case scenario. Is anybody going to die from that? If not,
Yeah.
give it a go. Again, that's why what's the worst that can happen? Um,
Yeah.
and usually it's never as, and actually what happens is,
Mm.
okay, it wasn't the best birthing class that I did first time round, and I learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
I'm actually glad there was only one person in the class. And I had to start somewhere. I had to,
Yeah.
that's how the book got written, by doing that first brave step.
Mm.
And remember, it's the journey, it's not the destination.
Yeah.
Because as you say, when you get to the destination, you're going to dream and reimagine something more, or something, because of what you've learned along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh man, such powerful words. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. Just we'll of course have links and things like that in the show notes, but just for those who maybe just want to go and quickly find you, where can people find you and how do people get in touch with you?
Well, the best way is to drop me an email,
Ooh.
energyflowan
Mhm.
at gmail.com. Energy flow, I chose that because where thought goes, energy flows. So that's where I had so many people saying, are you an electrical company? So that's the reasoning behind it. Where thought goes, energy flows. So it's energy flow, which is all one word, ENERGYFLOW, and ANN at gmail.com. So that's the best way, is just to drop me a little an email. That's the best way. As I said, I'm in the process of creating a new website and all that sort of stuff. So I'm hoping I'll get the links out to you soon, because that's
Yeah.
the plan. In the meantime, that's the best way to get hold of me, is to drop me an email. And
Yeah.
then the way I normally do is have a conversation with people. No pressure, just to see if we're a good fit. And then if I think I can help somebody and we feel like a good fit, then I'll come back to someone with a proposal of how we can work together. So the first time we have a conversation, I have a conversation with someone, there's absolutely no pressure whatsoever. It's just, I want to serve people as much as possible in that half an hour that I've got with them, and then see where it goes from there.
Awesome. Oh, well, thank you so, so much for all of your time and your amazing stories and everything. Yeah, this has absolutely inspired me for the rest of my
Oh,
day. So thank you so much.
great, Tiffany. Well, I'll
Yeah.
look forward to seeing you on the stand-up comedy circuit. We'll
Yeah.
maybe later. But I think you've got to have a sense of humor as a teacher. You wouldn't have got to where you are without.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. I mean, like my introduction to teaching, like in a classroom setting, was when I was in Korea, and like I just got off the plane. I had no formal background in teaching, and it was, here's the textbook, there's the classroom, go teach. They'll tell you what page. So,
Great. But that's
yeah,
brilliant. That's the way to do it. Just suddenly finding yourself in the position, and
yeah,
what do they call it? Like learning that you build the bike that you want
yeah.
to ride along the way. And that's it. That's part of the falling
Mm,
over. So yeah, awesome.
awesome. Okay, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Tiffany. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Business Bravery podcast. Has this episode inspired you to do something brave? Even if it's only send a difficult email, please share it with me on Instagram or other social media channels. Feel free to tag me at Tiffany G Studios. That's TIFFANY. G for golf, STUDIOS, no spaces, no underscores, etc. Or you can use the hashtag Business Bravery Podcast so that I can cheer you on, and together we can inspire other coaches and course creators to do brave things in their business and life. Now, I'm Tiffany, and I'll leave you with this one last thing. What's one brave thing you're going to do today? It doesn't have to be big. Even the smallest steps can create the most massive results. So again, feel free to share it with me either publicly or privately so that I can cheer you on. That's it from me. Until next time, bye for now.